All right, in my last video, I was talking about building a mixer to take the IF of this radio, which is 1.15, mix it with 960 kilohertz to get 455 to come over into this radio. And it does work, okay? And I'd show you it would work, but who really cares at this point? I want to tell you some of the messed up stuff. Now remember, I built this special little adapter so I could plug this thing in and out. And it really, there's the crystal there. The reason I built it this way was so I could take it in and out pretty quick to make any resistor changes. Now, what I want to tell you is the original idea was to have some type of plug-in module that would go in this radio, take the IF can frequency, which is 1.415, mix it with 960 kilohertz to produce 455, come out of here, go into one of these beacon radios. Now this is a BC454, which is like 80 meters. You come out of here and you get narrower, okay, for CW operation and that. And the idea does work, but there's some problems that you don't see until you actually build something. Now, I used a 12BE6, and the 12BE6 wants a lot of screen current. Now, the original tube, which was like a 12SR7, it doesn't have a screen on it. So your module that you'd make to plug in there, you have no way to get a screen voltage if you used a 12BE6. Okay, now what I did was I ran a wire, okay, from the power supply back here to one pin, and to make it work. And the other thing I found that, you know, this radio has it's three megacycles to 6. So in one part of the band you're going to cross 455, and it's going to oscillate. That had me. I was in the area like, why is it whistling so bad, and motorboating and everything. And that's because the whole radio went into feedback, because it picks up 455 and the wires are a little long. And then it hit me. I said, all right, but it does work. And what made it all possible to troubleshoot it was the DX390. Now this DX390, I could set it up for 455. Now let me see. Yeah, I'll throw this thing on. Let's throw caution to the wind. Okay, the DX390 can pick up the 455 after it's been converted. All right, now both these radios are on. It's going to take a little while to heat up. It also can pick up the frequency. It'd be nice if there's something on. But as you can see, at 455, it's picking up the mixed signal. It also can pick up 960 kilohertz. Okay, and it's dead. In other words, it's showing me that. Oh, I hit the off switch. Okay, showing me full scale. If I shut this radio off, you'll see that disappear. Okay, so just having this radio off to the side, and also it can pick up 1.415. 1.415. Okay, this radio is the best. I did reviews of this radio and other ones, and some people agree with me and some people don't. But I use this radio for technical support. Okay, and it's been very good. Let me just shut this off. But right now, there's really nothing on shortwave on that band. And at night, I would do a video. But the last few nights, electrical crashes on the internet, on shortwave has been really bad. We have a lot of storms that form around us in the afternoon. Early in the morning, there was a couple preachers on shortwave, but I really wanted to pick up WWV not WW, CHU Canada, and mark on the dial, you know, where it shows up and how wide it is, and then come over and go through this one, and then go back here, and then show how narrow it gets. But I haven't been able to do it. I can't pick up CHU Canada. These are the things that happens when you deal with tubes and shortwave. You have atmospheric conditions, you got storms, and there's so many things that can go wrong. In this case, I picked a 12BE6 because it's a more modern converter oscillator tube, and it's 50 years old or more. But the 12SR7, whatever it is that was in there, didn't need a screen voltage. So this one needs a screen voltage. So I had a bootleg that, but I was really looking to make a plug-in module that you just plug it in and that's it. All right. And I wasn't really able to do it 100%. I had to come steal voltage out of the power supply over here. There's not enough. There's signals that come up for the 12SR7 from the bottom. You can get the IF frequency comes up, and then your oscillator is separate on the module, so that's no big deal. But the 12BE6 wants a high. Look at this. One of the neighbors going out to get coffee. 12BE6 wants a screen voltage, which you can't get through the tube socket. But the whole idea did work. And also, once I got this put in 455 out, I was able to pick it up over here before I even turned this one on. And then also this was able to pick up the station this morning and make it more narrow when it's just the IF of 1.415. It's a pretty good experiment. And the reason I do certain experiments like this is just I have a thought. And then one of the thoughts was make sure I could wiggle, make sure this is really off. Make sure I could really wiggle this out, because I know I'm going to take it in and out several times, changing resistor values and that. And one of the funny things that first happened was all the tubes in the command radio, the filament is 2 and 7, all right, except for the 12SR7. It's 2 and 8, or 7 and 8. And I plugged this module in over here just to see if it lit up, and it lit up. Then I put it back over here and it didn't light. And I'm like, why don't it work? The tube socket must be in. I'm like, hold on, don't panic. Go look at the schematics again. So I look at the schematic, and down on the bottom, they show you a string of filaments hooked together in series. And down there are the pin numbers. And the one tube that I used the socket of, 7 and 8. So I moved the wire, put the adapter back in, made sure the tube lit up. The next step was to put the cathode to the pin that goes to ground. And then the next step was to bring the plate voltage down, and then assemble my crystal. There's a capacitor and a resistor, and make sure that that oscillator worked. Now, the oscillator would work until I put a signal in on the second grid. You know, you got one grid for the oscillator, and then another grid, which is actually grid 3. You put in your signal from your IF cam, and it would shut the oscillator down. I'm like, oh, I don't have enough voltage. I don't have enough gain. So I started thinking about it. I tried changing values of resistors, and then finally I said, all right, I got to go direct connection up into the power supply and run a wire down to the module. And it did work, and it also, but what I was set out to do was to build a module that you just plug in here, and you run a shielded wire out to the other unit. That was the plan. And as soon as I realized I couldn't get enough current from the plate of the 12SR7, and I think it's 12SR7. Let me look real quick. I'm dyslexic. 12SK7, that ain't the tube. SK7. 12SR7. I don't have my glasses on. Anyway, that's what threw the kibosh on the whole project. But it didn't stop me from building this and making a try. And of course, yeah, you could change the tube to a different type. But more modern tubes, they have shields. Not shields, uh, oh my God, a grid. The shield grid? No. See, this is what happens when you get old. You have memory loss and senior moments. But in other words, you got to have that one grid excited with plus voltage. A shield grid. Is it a shield grid? Yeah, I guess I'm saying it right. It doesn't sound right to me. Well, anyway, you have to have a certain amount of voltage or that tube won't have gain. And when I learned that was this engineer on my block. He had a tube radio that didn't work, and it was a shortwave radio, and it was his friend who died gave him the radio, and he really wanted it working. So I go in there and I noticed he substituted the tube, and I got a book out and it said you can substitute the tube, but you have to add a jumper from B plus or the plate to the shield grid and screen grid, not shield. Oh my God, I'm getting old. So anyway, the screen grid wasn't getting any voltage. I put the jumper and the radio started working. So then I went back down to give the radio back to the guy. And he starts arguing with me. And this always happens to me. I show people what they did wrong, and then they argue with me. And then he started saying, well, where did you see that? And of course it was he worked for Tongue Saw. He gave my dad this book, and it was for substitutions. And that's who he worked for. And I showed him, I said, it's the Tongue Saw book. And boy, he was red-faced, but he was still doubling down. Well, you shouldn't have to have if it's a direct substitute. It's not a direct substitute. There's an asterisk next to it that says, if you use this tube in this place, you got to add a jumper. And that's the way he was. But that's one of those moments I didn't learn. I always tell you in life, you have to learn. You keep making the same mistake over and over until you learn. And what I should learn was avoid that guy, because every time he couldn't fix something, he'd give it to me. And then he would argue with me after I got it working. And it really got to be annoying. And I find that here also in this neighborhood. People pull me over or call me over, and then they start arguing with me. They like to argue. And reality is one thing. And I tell them the reason the thing won't work is because you're doing this wrong or that wrong. You called me over to ask me why something doesn't work. And then when I tell you, you argue with me. And I've learned that now. And I just walk away. I say, I have to go. And I just leave them. People that stop me and ask me for directions, I tell them, where they made their mistake. And when they want to argue with me, I say, look, I got to go. I have a life. And I walk away. They're strangers. I don't care if they like me or not. But in the past, I'd stand there, and I have that face. I'd stand there and look sad for them because they're stupid. Not anymore. Somebody will ask me a question, and I'll answer it. Like they'll say, do you know if the dollar store's open? I said, well, a lot of days they close at 2 in the afternoon. Well, why do they close? Well, first of all, why did you ask me if they're open? All right? Because they know it's closed certain days. And why? They have a staffing problem. People don't want to work for $7.95. Now that it's 10, it's open a little bit more. But it seems like the 2 old ladies that worked in there, they've cut their hours, and they have cheaper workers working in there, okay? So, but the 2 old ladies got them all through the pandemic and everything, working extra hours. And now that people will work there for $10 an hour, they cut the hours of the 2 people that stuck it out for them. Life's unfair. And I see it, but I'm trying to learn old lessons now. And most of the time, when someone calls you over, they want something. They're not calling you over to give you a pile of money. They're calling you over because they want to know something. And a lot of times they know the answer. They don't like the answer. So now they call you over and they ask you. Now when you give them the answer they don't like, they'll argue with you. Okay, because they don't like the way life goes. They don't like reality. And I've learned now, as soon as they call me over, I go, I start telling them, look, it's hot out. Like, it's really been hot. I'm not going to stand out there in the sun and listen to one of their stories and then argue with them. Like the one guy, he's complaining he's got so much work to do, but he's mowing people. He works at work in 5 different locations. And then at night he goes and mows people's lawns. And he's complaining he has too many lawns to mow. I said, what do you charge? And he says, $20. I said, that's not enough money. And he's mowing these big properties for $20. I said, Well, what you do is you raise it to 25, and oh, they'll quit. Well, if you got too many jobs, that tells you your fee is too low. It's business. Well, they'll be upset. Well, if you keep going that way, but I'm standing there in the heat listening to him complain, and I said, I went through this in my life where I had too much work cutting people's lawns, and I wasn't charging enough. And it tells you, and if you read about business, if you have too many customers and you can't keep up, uh, your prices may be too low, and raise your prices, and then you'll have less work and you'll be making more money. That's what real efficient business is. Now, if you watch the Shark Tank, they sort of explain this stuff to you, and people don't want to hear it. They're like, well, if I charge more, I'll lose customers. Yes, you'll lose customers, but you'll actually make more money. The whole idea is, if you either don't complain and do all the hard work, or cut back and have some free time and charge more money. And some people, they do a job, they set up a company. I did it. You work real hard for next to no money, thinking it's going to last. And you keep putting more and more of your sweat and your heart into it. And then all of a sudden, the company or your company peaks out. And you didn't charge enough. Now, no one wants your product anymore. It's your fault. Okay, these are the lessons I had to learn. And someone says, when strike while the iron's hot. And I had people email me after they bought my plans, and they said, your plans are worth a lot more. And other people do three pages of plans. And I bought some of those plans over the years. They helped me get the project done. But for 3 sheets of paper, I would pay $40. So then when I was doing it, years later, I was charging $30. And some of my booklets were 60-something pages. And you got to learn. You say to the person, I need $60 for those plans. Well, I'm not going to pay 60. Well, I guess you're not interested, because that's what it comes down to in business, what the actual cost is. And if you can't get what you're working for, don't do the job. You're just wasting your time. It's going to fall apart, and then you're going to be more bitter. And that's what happened to me. I kept thinking, being a nice guy. No, business is business, okay? But I worked on this thing, and going into it, I was worried I wouldn't be able to get all the voltages, and it did. It worked out that way. It didn't work out so good, but I got it to see it work. And if the computer behind me didn't put out so many damn whistles and buzzes, and if there was somebody actually on these bands, I could show you it work. Okay, but shortwave is dying, and there's people. Oh, there's still stuff on there. I clicked on a ham 2 days ago, and he was explaining the downfall of something or something else. And he says, by the way, he says, shortwave is dead. I almost wet my pants. I was laughing so hard. And he's sitting there laying back like, it's over with, guys, And, he's just a guy that's done like 1,000 videos on ham radio. And he's telling you it's basically people want those frequencies. And he was going off on something else, And then there's one guy on one of them I was reading today. He's waiting for one of the companies to put out a 200 watt transmitter receiver for his car. See, 150 is not enough wattage, so he's going to wait. He's a bullshit artist, okay? Nobody waits for a transmitter to be 200 watts. What area are you going to have on that car, okay? And I met one of those guys in the parking lot over by Ollie's, and he had auto tuner in the trunk, and he's talking to me, and I just had never seen a ham radio operator in this area. And he's telling me all this. I said, I know that. I know what auto tune is. I saw one of the first auto tunes with a motor with micro switches and coils and And then I started talking to him. The guy never got outside of the United States yet. I got outside the United States with a 4-watt CB radio. And he's looking at me like, what do you mean? I said, you never talk outside the border of the United States? With a 100-watt transmitter? No, that's because the auto tune, and the antenna just aren't cutting it. He's working real low frequencies, and the antenna's not that long. Yeah, it'll transmit a few blocks, and I'm standing there, I'm like, it's all pizzazz. It's all more sizzle than steak. He says, I can switch from frequency to frequency, and the antenna automatically tunes. Yeah, but it doesn't put out because the antenna isn't long enough. It's not big enough. It's on a car. And I just realized that's what people are really about. They don't really want to read and think anymore. And I'm like, another experiment. What if? I think, what if? And if you talk to people, they're like, what are you working on? And you start to explain it to them, their eyes go up into their freaking head. They're not like, oh, that sounds really boring. I know it's boring. It's hard. It's hard work. Going into something, there's going to be a problem. But one of the problems I knew, let me make sure it's off, was I was going to have to take this in and out a few dozen times. And ahead of time, I'm thinking, don't just run wires and parts. Because I had these adapters, like in RCA, and they were a real pain in the ass putting them in and out. Because you do it enough times, and sometimes it just drops right in there, and sometimes it don't. Sometimes you feel like a nut, and sometimes you don't. There you go. And yeah, in RCA, you'd be doing an adapter, and one of the wires would break on you. And what a pain in the ass. But yeah, I did it. It doesn't work to where I would actually want to use it. And the other thing too is I still can't learn code. So a lot of these things I do just because I think, what if? My power supplies, I can run 2 of these things because I have 2 different power supplies. And, I go the extra mile. And I learn lessons, and a lot of times going in here, you start thinking, what are the problems I'm probably going to have? And you try to avoid them as you're going into the project. Like I said, just make it so you can take it in and out a few dozen times. That's one thing. Then I'm like, well, let me look at what voltages are available from the 12 SR7 and what's there, what isn't there. And I right away, the B plus voltage for the plate that I'm stealing actually goes through the BFO coil, and I'm thinking, I can cheat like that. So it did. The voltage that goes, the plate voltage goes through the BFO coil, which I'm not using, but it comes up to the socket, and you can use it to run the tube, and you can get the tube to oscillate, but you're not going to get a lot of gain because now you need the screen voltage. Screen voltage. See, it doesn't sound right to me. I said shield before, which is wrong. Okay, screen. So you need the screen voltage to get the gain in the tube. And some tubes don't have a screen. And they go a different way. But this mixer wants that voltage. And it wants it up as high as the plate voltage. And I was using a resistor. Because if I went direct, it was knocking down my voltage that comes up through the BFO coil. It was pretty fun finagling, and then finally I just said I'm going to have to run another wire out of the top here over through a resistor to the power supply, and that blew the whole project right there. Gone. There's not enough voltage. Now I could change the tube type. Go looking for a tube that's a mixer without a screen. Okay, and I could probably get this to work. Okay, I don't know if I'm going to do that. Maybe I'll go look around. I'm also noticing most tubes, 7-pin tubes, are 6-volt filament. Very few are 12. And I was looking for certain ones that I knew I could. And I'm like, that doesn't come in a 12-volt filament. And because these radios have 3 strings, 3 serial strings in parallel. There's 2 tubes in parallel in series. In sets, 3 sets, and then they're in parallel. So the whole radio uses 24. Okay, 12 and 12 in series is 24, and then those are in series, are in parallel with another set, so they're all the sets are getting 24 volts, and that's because on an aircraft they use 24 volts, actually DC to light the tubes, and then they have a dynamotor on the back of these things. I have one of those. It turns a motor generator set, and it makes the high voltage for the set. Very slick, and it was an okay project. It kept me busy, and it's been hot. Oh man, is it hot out there? And on my past videos, one of them I deleted, I explained to you when you retire, weather is going to be a big factor when you get older. As you age, your heart won't be that great, and hot weather will wear you right out. Cold weather, you'll feel it in your bones. You go outside like to shovel or to clean the car off, and you'll feel colder than you ever felt in your life. So you want to get back inside as soon as possible. So a lot of cold days are totally useless to you, and a lot of hot days will be totally useless to you. And you do get several days a year where the temperature is really nice, but then the days you're going to mow the lawn or paint the shed or clean the gutters, and that's what I'm finding. Every time I'm outside cleaning the gutters out for the 100th time because those spinners, the bark falling off the tree, the squirrels build a nest, and then they take the nest apart, and those pieces fall into the gutter and clog the gutter. So I constantly have my gutter sense out there. It's a tool on the end of a long pole with a rope, and I can clean the gutter from the ground. And I'm out there it feels like forever with that thing out there, keeping the gutters clear. And then sometimes in the storms we have here, it's very windy. It blows the leaves off the tree, and then they get in the gutter and clog the gutter. So while you're in the house and it's raining really hard, and you know you have those gutters clear, they get clogged. And then you got to go out in the rain and unclog them. But a lot of stuff is really annoying when you retire. And I'll be working on this, and I realize I have something cooking in the oven. I got to run down and, you know, put the potatoes in and pull this out, you got to have a nap. So that's shot your nap time. You spend time putting the garbage out, bringing the garbage cans back in. The mail is anytime. I have special flag on my mailbox that when the girl opens it, I can see that it's been opened from down here, because if you keep checking your mail during the day, you'll make yourself crazy. And my neighbors, that's a big thing with them. Did the mail lady come yet? Did she come yet? That whole day is based on, did the mail come? Did the store up the street open? Did the store up the street close? That's the downside of retirement, is being around people that are freaking boring. And I know my hobbies are boring, but they're hard. And I get to think about stuff and figure out what's going to go wrong and try to avoid it and try to get it working. And that's what I find fun. Okay. And then I told you on the last video, there's a point at which you're working on a project and it's harder than you expected. And it's not any fun. And I make a mess with all my tools, and you know, you have the parts out of the bins, you got to put the stuff away, and every project creates a mess, and you got to put it all away. And I stayed with it. I got it working to where I understand now, but basically, there's no real use for a radio like this anymore, unless you're like, there is a group of ham radio guys that go on certain nights a week, and they use old like command radios, and there's a slow code group, which if I ever learn code, I could probably go on at night. But I watch the videos for the ham flea markets, and it all looks like the same guy. He's overweight, he's got a t-shirt on. It's funny stuff, and I've become one of those guys now. I'm not quite as heavy as they are, but you know, it's a group of guys that they're waiting. Was it waiting for God? And that's the truth. And I just wish that I could send one of these back through time to myself, or the schematic, or to go buy one, because it turned out to be lots of fun, this little radio. And I see they really go for some big money on eBay. And I wait. I get this one I got for $40 with shipping. If you wait, you can get one. You'll find someone that puts it up there that really doesn't know what it is. And you're still going to have to redo the caps. You got to build a power supply. So when they sell it to you for $100, you're getting screwed. Okay? I think that's it. All right, that's it.